Some ideas were born centuries before the world was ready for them. So they ended up forgotten, underestimated, or treated as curiosities. Today, I'm going to show you 10 ancient technologies ahead of their time. Who created them, where they emerged, why they were born, and what they did, told like a story, the kind you enjoy listening to. 1. Antikythera mechanism. At some point between the 2nd and the 1st century before Christ, craftsmen working with astronomers from Rhodes in Greece built a bronze machine of the heavens, packed with exquisitely fine gears. Its purpose was both practical and sacred, to forecast the cycles of the sun and moon, eclipses, athletic games, and religious festivals with precision so civic life could be organized. Turn a hand crank and pointers would display calendars and future events, like a pocket analog computer. But this demanded extremely costly craftsmanship. Tiny gear teeth, straight shafts, pure bronze, everything aligned by hand. Without standardized workshops and with wars dismantling libraries, the knowledge stayed restricted and was lost. The Roman world preferred tables and astrologers. Europe wouldn't see mechanics like this again until medieval clocks much later. The result? The machine existed, but the planet didn't have the network to replicate it. 2. Heron's steam engine. In Alexandria in the 1st century, the engineer Heron demonstrated a sphere that spun when steam jets escaped from 2 side nozzles. Was it a temple toy? It was also brilliant proof. Heat turning into continuous rotational motion. Heron was already playing with doors that opened on their own, magic fountains, valves, and siphons. The next step would have been using that force to move wheels, mills, entire workshops. Why didn't it happen? Because the city had water, wind, and cheap labor to do everything that was needed, because strong metal alloys and reliable bearings were lacking, and above all because there was no economic need to replace human muscle. The idea was right, the world wasn't. It ended up displayed as a wonder, while the Industrial Revolution would come many centuries later. 3. Zhang Heng's seismoscope. At the beginning of the 2nd century in Luoyang, China, the astronomer Zhang Heng presented the emperor with a bronze vessel rimmed by 8 dragons. When the earth trembled far away, one dragon would spit a ball into the mouth of a frog, indicating the direction the quake had come from. The goal was noble: dispatch help quickly to the stricken provinces without waiting for messengers. Inside the vessel, a mass sensitive to small accelerations triggered the mechanism like a very clever pendulum. The problem wasn't the principle. It was the world around it. No network of instruments, no standardized maintenance, no data comparison, and no consolidated theory to estimate distance and intensity. The empire saw the value, but without serial replication, it became a palace showpiece. Earthquake science would take many centuries to reach what Zhang tried to start. 4. Ma Jun's south-pointing chariot. In the 3rd century, the engineer Ma Jun built a vehicle whose small figure on top always pointed south, no matter how many turns the cart made. The secret was a set of differential gears that compensated for the wheel's rotations, preserving orientation. That allowed processions and expeditions to cross unknown terrain even under a clouded sky. In theory, genius. In practice, rutted roads, poor lubrication, and handmade construction made accuracy drift over time. Without mass production and specialized maintenance, the mechanical marvel turned into a court prestige piece. The magnetic compass, cheap and simple, would end up winning. But Ma Jun had already shown the way. 5. Roman concrete that heals cracks. Builders around the Bay of Naples mixed lime with volcanic ash, aggregate, and seawater to raise domes and harbors that defy time. The blend formed minerals that, in contact with water, grew back inside microcracks, as if the material slowly repaired itself. That made works like the Pantheon and marine breakwaters that still stand possible. Why didn't the world copy it right away? Because it depended on specific ash deposits, because a mason's know-how was passed from master to apprentice, and because the fall of the empire shattered trade routes and guilds. Centuries later, European construction favored cut stone and simple mortars. When modern cement arrived in the 19th century, it brought speed, but not exactly the same durability in salt water. The Romans had a contextual secret: raw material, technique, and design that the rest of the world couldn't bring together. 6. The Greek fire that burned on water. In Constantinople, starting in the 7th century, military artisans created a flammable liquid that, sprayed from siphons, caught fire even at sea. It was chemistry applied to naval defense, resinous mixes and petroleum derivatives, perhaps with quicklime and other reagents. that stuck to targets and wouldn't go out easily. The city survived sieges thanks to this liquid terror. The empire guarded the technique as a state secret. Without open manuals, standardized metalworking, or large-scale industry, rivals couldn't reproduce it. Over time, the formula itself was lost. The technology sat beyond the era's ability to spread. It demanded coordinated supply, containers, nozzles, pressure, and trained crews. Everything expensive, everything fragile, in a world without mass manufacturing. 7. Cornelis Drebbel's submarine. Between the 1620s and 1630s, in London, Drebbel built a wood hull clad in leather that sailed submerged on the River Thames before the king. Oars moved the craft, air bladders controlled buoyancy, and there are reports of chemical tricks to freshen the breathable air on board. It was maritime espionage ahead of its time. Approach unseen, bypass blockades, observe fleets. But compact engines, pressure-resistant metal hulls, efficient propellers, and decent batteries were all missing. Navies found it fascinating and impractical for real war. The concept was launched, even though the century didn't yet have the means to make it routine. 8. Brunel's atmospheric railway. In southwest England in the mid-19th century, Isambard Brunel installed a track with a central tube. Stations with pumps sucked air from the tube, and a coupled piston pulled the train, conquering grades without giant locomotives. On paper, elegant, fixed engines, light consists, quiet operation, efficient climbing. In the real world, the tube's longitudinal slit needed a leather seal slathered with tallow. Rain, salt, and rats ruined the seal. Maintenance costs exploded, and failures stalled the line. In short order, the system was shut down. The idea, though, was too good to die. Today, with advanced polymers and modern seals, the dream of low-pressure tunnels keeps resurfacing with new names and new materials. 9. Alexander Graham Bell's photophone. In 1880, in Washington, Bell and Sumner Tainter sent a voice traveling by light. A mirror vibrated with speech, modulating a light beam that a sensitive cell captured and turned back into sound. It was wireless, optical telephony, decades before fibers and lasers. Why did it stay in the lab? Because it depended on sunlight or very stable light sources. Clouds, dust, and vibration killed the link, and radio soon offered a more robust path. Even so, the principle waited for its hour. When concentrated light sources, precise detectors, and ultra-pure transparent cables arrived, the idea was reborn as the backbone of modern communications, exactly as Bell dreamed, just with technology he didn't have. 10. Babbage's analytical engine and Ada's programs. In London starting in 1837, Charles Babbage designed a gear-driven machine with memory, an arithmetic unit, punched card input, and flow control with branches and loops. He wanted to take from humans the job of computing astronomical and navigation tables riddled with errors. Ada Lovelace, studying the project, wrote detailed instructions for the machine to compute mathematical sequences and, bolder still, intuited that the architecture could manipulate symbols of any kind, music, images, language, if properly encoded. The problem was the world around it. Machining lacked the needed precision. Funding came in waves and dried up, and parts changed standard from one supplier to another. The vision was solid. The ecosystem wasn't. Computing would only truly be born when vacuum tubes, relays, and later transistors gave the dream the matter it needed. Which one surprised you the most? And which would make the most interesting scene in the video? If you liked it, hit the like button, subscribe, and share it with anyone who loves discovering ancient technologies.